case you haven't heard, weakness is the new strength and vulnerability is the new security. That's right. Let's dig into why I'm telling you that weakness is in fact the best way towards strength and vulnerability is the best way towards security. And also, what the fuck does this have to do with health and fitness? All right. What up, my people? Psyched for this one. Let's get right into it. In case you haven't heard, weakness is the new strength and vulnerability is the new security. That's right. Man, I feel like if all I did in this life was to shift primarily the male collective consciousness a little bit more in this direction, I will have done my job. Because so many times I'm talking to guys and that we're operating from the exact opposite viewpoint, and it's not our fault, but this is how we were raised, and it's not our dad's fault because that's how he was raised, and it's not our grandpa's fault because that's how he was raised. That's how it's been forever. And for a long time, we didn't really have as big of an opportunity to shift the script as we do now. There for a long time, the game of life was merely a game of survival, and so in some ways, you could make a strong case for pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, taking care of number one, and making sure that you build the right walls in the right places so that way nothing can get you or your family or the things that you hold near and dear anymore. That is not the case. We have arrived in this day and age where we have an outrageous amount of abundance, particularly in the first world, and we're figuring out how to spread that convenience and abundance and access to the rest of the world. And so now we get to choose. We get to choose, do we want to live based on survival, or maybe there's a better way? Maybe that while we chase survival and while we build shells for ourselves, we actually lose something in the process. We lose freedom, because a wall doesn't just keep things out, but a wall also keeps things in. And so here we go. Let's dig into why I'm telling you that weakness is in fact the best way towards strength and vulnerability is the best way towards security. And also, what the fuck does this have to do with health and fitness? So consider the reality that your entire health and fitness game is really a quest for security. It's really a quest for confidence. It's really a quest for certainty in what you can do, in your ability to show up, and your ability to show up consistently and to handle whatever life throws at you. That's how we define resilience here at the Resilience Method. It's your ability to handle whatever life throws at you. And when you have that, you have security. You have a far greater sense of confidence living day to day than the person who is not sure if they're going to take sick, if they're going to contract some crazy bug or have a heart attack, or their blood glucose is going to go through the roof and they're going to have to amputate their leg, or they're going to slip on the way down the stairs, shatter their knee, or whatever it is, or even just have like the cognitive ability to handle the stress of day-to-day existence. All of these things are the real reason why real people work out. Having six-pack is nice. Having ab veins, having 225 bench or whatever the number is great. But at the end of the day, these are means to an end, and the real end is security. So if that's the real game, then what does it actually take to get there? We want strength, but really we want strength so we can handle life, right? That's security. And we want security. We want to be able to handle whatever life dishes out, so that way we can live and move and do what we want to do. That's self-actualization. That's the pinnacle of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The bottom, if you recall from freshman year psych class, is survival, your basic needs. And then there's the mammalian sort of belonging inside of a group. And then there's, shelter. And then there's, at the very tippity top, we have self-actualization. Once you've taken care of all those lower level needs, now you're able to actually hearken towards self-actualization. That's the peak. So why does the default male strategy fail? Why does showing up in strength actually prove the opposite? Well, it's because when you pick yourself up by your bootstraps and you tell yourself, I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to do what it takes, the only entity in that equation is you. This is your ego talking, because your ego is the part of you that is separate and wants to stay separate from everything else. There's a part of you that knows that your true self, is actually one with everything else. And that part of you is at war with your ego, and or rather your ego is at war with your true self. And a lot of times your ego fights much more dirty and yells much more loudly. And so we tend to default into that mode. And it just feels nice at first, because at first we'd prefer to be autonomous, prefer to be independent, prefer to not need anyone or anything else. That seems like control. That seems like winning. But like I just said, you're actually like, put yourself in a position like that is actually a slow and agonizing death, because you've shut yourself off from life itself. Every breath is inspiration. It's a breathing in of life. And in a metaphorical context, we need to breathe life into ourselves in order to sustain. And so if you're putting up walls that prevent you from doing that, from interfacing with everything around you, you're cooked. So what does that look like? Let's make another metaphor. This is a pretty funny little diagram here, but imagine you have a pole on one hand and you have a tree. Now the pole represents what most guys do. We take our efforts and we put it towards everything that everyone else can see, whatever's above the surface. You make a big, tall tree trunk, you staple some leaves on there and some branches, and you call it a day. Problem is that you didn't put any effort into actually build roots. And so as soon as that first breeze comes, that pole is just going to fall right over. As soon as life starts to get real, as soon as adversity comes your way, you're going to fall right over, because all you did was try and make yourself look big. Now compare that to an actual tree. What does the tree do? Well, the tree puts down roots first. The tree spends lots and lots of time under the surface where no one can see, where it's not obvious, where it doesn't appear big at all. It's not mighty, it's not formidable, it's not impressive. It's just putting down roots. It's just getting connected. And the tree that puts down the best roots is the tree that survives. And when it does grow, man, is it able to continue no matter what winds or storm or tempest may come its way. So true strength comes from connecting to what is beyond yourself, tapping into the source. So, because without that, you have no means for growth. And as soon as adversity comes your way, you're going to topple over. And that is what we see all the time. Guys who look on the outside like they have it all together, probably to a certain extent, this is you. You've been putting on a good show. You've been making everybody think that you know what you're doing. But really, on the inside, you feel like you're crumbling. You feel isolated, and you feel trapped in this prison of your own design. I've been there. That's how I know. So what are we going to do about this? Well, we have to, first of all, be willing to be seen as weak, as uncomfortable and unpleasant as that may seem. It's very unpopular, because we rather have everyone on the planet thinking that I am the man. If that's a lie, who are you really fooling? You're only fooling yourself. Talked about this already. You can't show the world who you really are until you show yourself who you really are. So this goes back to what I was talking about the last time we talked mindset and I talked about integrity, which means no duplicity, wholeness. What you see is what you get. And it starts with yourself, being willing to tell yourself the truth. Because once you can tell the truth to yourself about yourself, it's much easier to tell the world the truth about yourself. And by the way, this doesn't have to be like a rip the Band-Aid off type, divulge your deepest, darkest secrets to, everyone all at the same time. There's enough grace for you to just pick and choose and go with the low-hanging fruit first, and like stick your neck out a little bit. Make yourself vulnerable a little bit to the right people in small circles, maybe in intimate one-on-one situations first, and see what happens. I guarantee you, if the person that you're choosing to show your real self to is a real friend, it's only going to feel amazing. It's only going to feel unburdening. It's only going to feel freeing. So here's the key. Humility and confidence are actually two sides of the same coin. At first glance, they may seem like complete opposites, but they actually stem from the same source. They're two sides of the same coin. Ready? If you're operating from an ego place, then you're going to need to seem big, as opposed to allowing yourself to actually not have it all together, to be confused at times, to be scared at times, to be sad at times. What's the next slide look like? Right. No, that's not it. And then at the same time. So that's like true confidence versus fake confidence, right? True humility versus fake humility. But if you're operating from a place of being grounded and connected and open and allowing for life and energy interaction to exist between you and the world and other people, then you can have true confidence because you know that you're connected to the source and you have what it takes because you're connected, because it doesn't all depend on you. And you've admitted that and you've come to terms with that and you figured out what to do instead. And at the same time, you can be humble, even though you have this confidence, this rooted, deep, intrinsic confidence in who you are and who you're not and where your power comes from. You can still be humble because the power that you do leverage, is a gift because it doesn't come from you directly. It comes through you. So humility and confidence are the same thing at the end of the day. When you're connected to your source, to God, to a source of power bigger than yourself, these two things collapse. And now this is where the game starts to get good because now you don't need to spend energy building up those personas, creating those walls, keep things out, and putting on all those masks. And now you can just put your energy towards actually being the person that you want to be, and towards becoming that version of yourself that can handle all the things that you want. And so one more way to look at this is, I've been talking about false self versus true self. Another way to look at it is the game of power versus force. So the false self exists inside the game of force. We've been talking about that, right? The ego, creating separation, isolation, putting up walls, pushing, straining, trying to contort and manipulate and force outcomes, force the world to exist in a way that seems most advantageous to oneself, right? For the purpose of sanctity, of a contrived security. But the true self operates from a place of power, from a place of allowing, from a place of alignment. The true self can move with the flow rather than having to create its own flow, right? Because the true self is connected. We all know that the real power exists outside of ourselves and that the best that we can hope for is to align with it to the greatest extent. And so harnessing the most power, in fact, the appropriate amount of power that you need to answer the call that you've been given, requires you to do exactly that, requires you to allow and to align and to go with the flow. It means opening yourself up and being and allowing yourself to be seen, warts and all, good, bad, ugly. You guys get the idea. So let's put this into practice, because this all sounds great. I can get behind this, but what do I actually do? All right. Well, I'm so glad you asked. In my opinion, the best way to reprogram yourself on a day-to-day basis to operate from a place of power rather than force, from play and step into true self versus the false self, to leverage divinity rather than ego, is the daily dozen. So what is that? This is my own patented journaling practice, and it's got 4 parts to it. We'll get in, and each part has 3 bullet points. You got the old self, I should rename this, the true self, gratitude, and then letting go. All right. So self do is every single day, or however often you do this, ideally it's every day, you make 3 bullets in your journal. And for the old self, I put little minuses, because these are the actions and habits that happen today that are not reflective of where you're trying to be. They're the false self, they're the old self. And these are things that you're minimizing. Okay. So you're just acknowledging that this happened. So that way you can become increasingly aware of these patterns, because they're always subconscious. The ego likes to be disguised. It likes to be behind the scenes, because then it can't be exposed. And so when you shine the light of awareness on what the ego is doing, it becomes ridiculous. And hopefully you got a sense of that in what I've talked about so far. This actually doesn't make any sense. If what we really want is security, and we know that achieving that security and self-actualization comes from us connecting to the world around us, why the fuck are we creating all these walls? It doesn't make any sense. But the ego wants to masquerade and prevent you from seeing the truth, because the ego is above all interested in self-preservation. So by initiating this first part of the daily dozen practice, now the ego has nowhere to hide. You can say, and you can see it plain as day. 3 minuses. Wow. I did this thing, reacted super flippantly to my wife. She didn't deserve it at all, but I was pissed off about something else an email that I had read or a meeting that I just got out of, and just totally lashed out at her, and she didn't deserve it. Or I skipped out on, I had a great workout, and then I got home, and I just got, I was just so stressed out, trying to like lasso the kids to keep them from killing each other over dinner and then getting them to bed on time, that I poured myself a tall beer and then 3 more, sat on the couch, passed out. And now I feel like shit because my recovery score, and I didn't get good sleep. Total self-sabotage. Just write that down and let yourself see it and then release it. Don't hold judgment for the things that you write down in this category. The whole point is not to berate yourself. The whole point is to release them. Once you release them, once you put them on paper, then you don't need to think about it anymore. It doesn't need to weigh down your spirit anymore. It happened. Let's move on. Thank God we get another shot at this. Number 2, the true self. So this is the exact opposite. These are 3 things, and I put 3 little plus marks next to mine. That these are habits and actions today that reflect exactly who you want to be. And so you can think of examples, right, of how you're trying to operate, things that you're trying to take on, attitudes that you want to live into more: peace, equanimity, courage, prioritizing the right things, right? I decided, instead of trying to bang out another 5 emails during my lunch break, I decided to go for a walk. The weather was nice, the sun was shining, and I just, feeling kind of keyed up and a little bit scattered. And so I just decided to go for a walk. And you know what? It was amazing. And I got back home, I got back to my desk, and the afternoon was super smooth. And I actually had a, meeting with one of my coworkers, and I found out something about them. We had a discussion that I don't think we would have had if I was just in like, go mode, brush mode, like I usually am. Cool. Write that shit down. And then write 2 more things like that down and move on to number 3, which is gratitude. Now, these are 3 things that you enjoy that you did not earn, things that you cannot take credit for. Because again, the ego loves to tell us that we are the end all be all. And so as long as that's the operating assumption, then there's no room for magic. There's no room for divine inspiration either. So then we get to number 4. And this is probably the toughest one. Oh yeah, so for the gratitude, I write check marks for my bullets. And then for number 4, I write X's, things that I'm letting go of, I need to release. So this is different from the self. The old self is like stuff that I did that's just not reflective of who I want to be. And number 4, the letting go, is like, it's usually outcomes. I'm usually so attached to outcomes that I have no business really assuming control over. Like I can't make other people's decisions for them. Can't decide market trends. I can't really dictate how people are going to treat me, especially the people that are close to me in my life. I can try to show up in love, and over time, that love is transformational for sure. But in the moment, it's volatile. And so I need to let go of expectations that I have for the world around me, also expectations I have for myself. And to that point, I wanted to mention with the gratitude thing, also, it's very powerful for me to actually write down things that have to do with myself. Again, didn't earn, can't take credit, but of me, because a lot of times we also tend to assume control or assume whatever skills, talents, knowledge that I have, somehow I'm the source of all of that. No, you're not. Your genetic code, you did not build your genetic code. That was given to you. You decided what to do with it. But there's so much about you. There's so much amazing stuff about you that you cannot take credit for. And there's also a lot of expectations of yourself that you have that you need to let go of, because they're only weighing you down. That doesn't mean stop trying. I know you're not going to do that. That just means that get process oriented. And this practice, doing this every day, is actually a gigantic flag that you're planting towards that effort. Because spending 5-10 minutes to do this every day has nothing to do with outcomes, really. This is you taking stock and becoming a student of the process and getting reflective. And the reason why you haven't done this yet is because you're too outcome oriented, because you're going to take that 5 or 10 minutes instead, and you're going to try to do something productive with it instead. And consider what Abraham Lincoln said, If you give me 6 hours to cut down a forest, I'm going to spend the first 4 sharpening my axe. If you just hack away in that forest with a dull ass axe, in this case, your brain, your psyche, your mental, emotional, spiritual state, you're just going to piss yourself off. And then because you're pissed off, you're going to piss other people off. And that's going to piss you off more. And you're going to end up in the situation that you're in right now. So don't do that. Do the daily dozen instead. Talked about that. This is how we become process oriented. This is how we shift from force to power, from ego to roots. So rather than this, I would say just go do the daily dozen right now. Just go do it. You don't have to share with me. If you want to, if it would be more powerful for you to share with somebody, by all means do that. You don't even have to share the whole thing. Just something that seems relevant or like that somebody else would be enriched or encouraged by you sharing that. They basically you get like a point multiplier, right? Because this whole thing is about being vulnerable. Share with somebody that needs to hear it. And if you want to type it in the chat or in the comments, then by all means do that. And I'll 100% respond. And I look forward to reading what you guys wrote. That's all I got for today. Hope that helps. Give me some feedback. Hit me up with any questions. This is Nathan Irizarry signing off. Go get it.